Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Well, today is Thursday, July 2nd, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. I am here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where, of course, last night participated in a We the People conversation. Fabulous discussion, and if you missed it, we'll be restreaming that. On today's show, there's a surge of National Guard and law enforcement in Washington, D.C., as Donald Trump throws himself a party for the nation's 250th anniversary. We'll talk to an activist about how they feel about this massive police presence in the nation's capital. We told you that Donald Trump did not give a damn about police misconduct, and the ACLU has a report that shows that police departments that were under DOJ jurisdiction pretty much are being let off scot-free as a result. The economy, it's supposed to be this golden age, not doing so well. Lackluster report. And last month's job report that Donald Trump and the Republicans were touting, they had to revise numbers down. Morgan Harper will be joining us to explain. Poor white MAGA supporters. I told y'all were stupid. I told you Donald Trump didn't give a damn about you. Wait until I break down how Donald Trump has just taken advantage of this country and earned himself billions of dollars. And all of you idiots who invested in his crypto, you have lost money. That's right. So, and a white Republican Pennsylvania state representative claims that the black House Speaker ejected him from the chamber. Well, Speaker Joanna McClinton will join us on Roland Martin Unfiltered to explain. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
The death of one-year-old Cohen Wiley, who was shot and killed by cops in Senatobia, Mississippi, has been classified as a homicide. That one-year-old was shot and killed in a Walmart parking lot on June 14th during an attempted arrest of an alleged shoplifter. Well, newly released autopsy findings obtained by the family's legal team has raised questions about what the police say happened during the shooting. On Wednesday, family attorney Ben Crump addressed the findings, which he says contradicts what police said happened.
And what we're trying to point out is that they need to show us what was warranted to shoot into this vehicle. There was a witness who told a family member that the car was going away from the officers when they shot. And so you see here to the right side, you have a bullet here on the right side of the windshield, and then you have the passenger right side door, the evidence that a bullet shot through that side of the car. And as you know, baby Courtney, his mother, was sitting in the right passenger side. That's very important as we try to solve a puzzle. And the reason we're having to try to solve the puzzle is because they won't release the video. Y'all do understand that. We wouldn't have to do all of this if they released the video. I mean, with the body camera, the dash cam on the vehicles, Walmart surveillance video. Y'all know Walmart got a lot of surveillance video. We are pretty confident if they release that video, it will show us exactly what happened. Right, Attorney Turner? And so I'm so grateful I got good investigators like Kareem Ali who were able to get photographs of the vehicle, even though the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation hasn't released anything to us. So you got right there Mama and baby Cohen in the car. And if you look at what Dr. Mitchell said, the shot was from a side, right side, and it went through his body, and it exited the left side, not a front or back. So that meant when baby Cohen was shot, this police is shooting from the side. You can't get that shot from the front.
We talk about this a lot on this show, that what often happens when police know that it was a proper and just shooting, they will quickly release body camera footage, dashboard camera footage, but they have not done so. We've seen this before, and typically they'll say, well, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, they're leading this investigation, but the same thing happens. There have been other cases where things happen, and they were very quick to release video. And so what Big Crump is saying is absolutely on point. And so no dash cam video and no Walmart parking lot video has been released to the public. Let's bring in our panel. Dr. Greg Carr is chaired, Dr. Greg Carr is with the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Joining us from D.C., Dr. Derek Jackson, State Representative from Georgia out of Atlanta. Dr. Larry J. Walker, Associate Professor, University of Central Florida, out of Orlando. And so, yes, we have 3 alphas on today's panel. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. This is consistent. This is consistent, Larry, with what we've seen in the past. When police, when they know that they've screwed up, they will slow walk the body camera footage, the dash camera footage, and that's what you see going on right here.
They're trying to outlast the outrage. This is all, a media communication strategy that you know better than anyone else, Roland. As you said, they're trying to slow walk this and hope that the local and national media will forget about it. But killing a 1-year-old child is unforgivable. And we do need to see the body cam footage. And I think your point about the numerous times in which they've released it, when they think, like you said, when they think that the shooting is justifiable, that information gets released quickly. But in this case, apparently, the death of a 1-year-old black child is not worth the very easy task of releasing the footage. Not only, like you said, in terms of that body cam footage, but in addition to that, Roland, in terms of, like you said, Walmart and any other video that's available. This is atrocious. I mean, it's unforgivable, as I said, and we really need to get to the bottom of this. There are things like this that give me nightmares as a parent, and is another example of when in law enforcement behaving in a way that another black body is lost, particularly a child whose life has just begun and never had the opportunity to actually live. So once again, we need to see all the audio and visual evidence to find out exactly what happened with this particular horrific murder.
Well, what just often happens, Derek, when we have these cases, and again, you have a cop that says, oh, they were coming towards us with the car. Again, let's look at what we're talking about here. This wasn't a capital offense. This wasn't somebody being held hostage. This wasn't a kidnapping. This wasn't a mass shooting. The call was an alleged shoplifter. And I just don't think when you're police, you come on the scene, your first reaction, let's pull my gun out and let's fire into a car that had 2 women and a child because over an alleged shoplifting of some diapers.
You're exactly right, Roland. I mean, this scenario did not warrant the use of deadly force. I mean, you can run the tape, you can see the tape, you can see all the evidence, and deadly force should not even be part of this equation. But let's unwrap this whole situation, Roland. You got a DOJ that not going to do anything. You don't have the civil rights of the DOJ there to assist in this matter. You have a climate where the individual that's occupying the Oval Office saying, hey, I'm going to give police immunity. I'm going to pardon them. And so, unfortunately, we have this 1-year-old soul where the family is demanding justice. And Ben Crump is spot on. But the individuals who are slow walking this, they're looking at this saying, we don't have to worry about the federal government stepping in. We don't have to worry about the DOJ. We don't have to worry about the civil rights movement. And eventually, those who are protesting will eventually go away.
What we could continue to have here, and this is just a reality, Greg, police know they can operate impunity. And what you now have is an individual sitting in the Oval Office who has made it perfectly clear, and we're going to deal with this with the ACLU report when we start talking about that. They made it clear that y'all can do whatever y'all want to. There is not going to be any retribution. Trump has said, I want to give police officers 100% immunity to do their job. And when cops know they can shoot and there were no repercussions, they're good with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Roland. I mean, here we are on the anniversary of the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And these sworn enemies of our common humanity, these racists, these white nationalists, taking what amounts to a blood oath. The ink wasn't even dry on the Civil Rights Act of 64, much less the Voting Rights Act of 65 a year later, when they basically vowed to roll back not just the 20th century, but the Civil War amendments, 13, 14, and 15, that legislation was based on. These are enemies of our common humanity. Tomorrow, I think we're making a very big mistake when we think about, as far as I'm concerned, we think about them thinking about us as human. There were no humans involved in this shooting. So, you know, as far as they're concerned, executing us is part of their sworn duty to maintain their fantasy white republic. It reminds me of Hannah Arendt attending the trial of Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi. In 1963, she published a book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, and she coined a term in that book called the banality of evil. And she said the problem isn't the convicted communist or the convicted Nazi in terms of what they believe. The problem is when regular people can't make the distinction between fact and fiction. And that is really the key to their entire motives. In other words, you haven't killed a human being. You haven't shot a person. You must understand that when you're talking about black people, you're talking about no human involved. They're no different than a pig or a wooden shoe. And if we accept that banality of evil, then it leads to things that we've been seeing this week. I mean, now they're talking like, oh, yeah, we want to screen pregnant women coming from other countries to see if they got babies in them so we can stop birth tourism, as if that's a problem. I mean, they're talking so reckless now, and this is all part of it. So how do we fight it back? Well, you know, I'm going to say less about this at this point, but I think it begins with us never conceding the idea that we're not human. But I think we need to stop behaving as if they think we're human. I think that's a fatal mistake. And in this case, it was actually fatal.
Here to watch this case and give you the latest of what takes place. All right, going to a break. We come back. We'll talk about how Donald Trump is literally just stealing money and how his supporters are beyond stupid. They're saying nothing about it. We'll also talk about the poorest jobs report that came up today as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Kalshi. It is the largest prediction market in the United States. Here's what makes Kalshi different. You're not playing against a house. Kalshi is peer-to-peer trading. You buy a yes or a no contract on whether something will happen, and you are trading directly against other users. Think of it like buying or selling a stock. The line isn't set by some algorithm working against you. It moves based on where the money goes. Public opinion sets the price. Right now, for instance, in the World Cup, Brazil is trading at 68%, meaning a $100 trade pays out $147.99 with a correct prediction. And as that probability shifts, you can buy in or out of your position at any time to lock in a profit or cut a loss. Now, Kalshi is CFTC approved. It is federally regulated, which is why it's available all across the country, including California and Texas. Download the Kalshi app and use the code SOCCER10, that's SOCCER10, to get $10 when you trade $10. You can also sign up at Kalshi, KALSHI.com/R/SOCCER10, which auto applies the code at checkout. Kalshi, KALSHI, trade. What's next?
Medicine and science under attack. I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
It's your boy Earthquake, giving Roland Martin something to do, because he don't know what to do. He's from Texas. Ain't his fault.
1 second now. Folks, we told you, we warned you that if Donald Trump got back into the White House, they did not give a damn about any of the Department of Justice investigations that were launched against police departments in this country. We had a real civil rights division under the Department of Justice led by Christian Clark when Biden was president. Well, you don't have that now with that Harmoot, whatever the hell that nutcase is. And we're seeing it when it comes to those various investigations the DOJ was supposed to be overseeing in these various police departments. Remember, I just told you in the last segment, Donald Trump made clear he wanted to give police 100% immunity. He did not want them to be investigated. You might remember the last time he was there. You had Attorney Generals Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr saying they wanted to pull back on consent decrees because they said it was hurting the morale of police officers. Well, the ACLU, what they've done is they've actually studied this. They've looked at what has been going on with these investigations, and what they see is exactly what we expected. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The report is titled Regressive Policing Under President Trump. And y'all know I cannot stand using that phrase with him. It's a one-year update on the ACLU's 7 states safety campaign, launched shortly after the Justice Department ceased its police reform initiatives in 7 states, with about, as I said, with the Biden administration identified widespread police brutality and racial profiling. Joining us to talk about this with the ACLU is Jen Roland. She's Deputy Project Director on Policing, a Criminal Law Reform Project at the ACLU. Jen, glad to have you here. I hate to say I told you so. We used the hashtag, we tried to tell you, but this is what we all said was going to happen. There was no interest whatsoever from Donald Trump in policing law enforcement, and listen, defense attorneys have told us they don't even waste their time reaching out to the Department of Justice because they know they're not going to receive any help in any police abuse case.
That's right. Unfortunately, we did know that the Trump administration would take actions to regress on policing, in his words, to unleash law enforcement and to unleash them to target Black people and to engage in police brutality. And shortly after he started his second term, the Department of Justice revoked findings from the Department of Justice under Biden, where they had extensive evidence of police departments engaging in violence and targeting Black people and brown people. And they revoked those findings with basically no reason soon into Trump's second term. And those are places, there were 7 states where the Biden administration the Department of Justice under President Biden found both excessive force and racial targeting. And that we found in looking at all of those places that problems were continuing at the moment that the Trump administration said there was nothing to see here. Let's move on.
It is shameful because there are victims. There are victims that we're dealing with, and they don't care. They've made it perfectly clear that they only care about a certain group of American citizens.
And what we found, so in our project, we issued records requests to all of these agencies where the Trump administration said that there were no problems, so they were walking away. They were abandoning these communities. These were all cities and places where the Department of Justice was promising reform to end these practices of police brutality and racial targeting, and working with community members who had asked for DOJ's help because of these abuses that they were seeing in their own communities. And we sent these records requests to all of these places to see for ourselves what was going on. And these requests sought mostly use of force reports that police departments keep in the ordinary course of their work. And these were reports that showed us what was happening in early 2025 when the Trump administration walked away from reform and abandoned these communities. And we found that there were problems continuing. Things like, in Minneapolis, where George Floyd was killed, we found examples of Minneapolis Police Department officers putting their knee on someone's neck. In 2025, we found examples in Louisville, where Breonna Taylor was killed, of officers who were using force against people who were already restrained. These kinds of problems that really put people's lives at risk.
Absolutely. Go to my panel here. Derek, your questions for Jen.
Yeah, Jen, I appreciate the work that you all are doing. I know as a state legislator, I use the ACLU's findings, your work, to help me shape policy here in Georgia. But I'm curious, though, based on your findings, specifically around Louisville and Minneapolis, what are some of the conclusions that you're seeing as it relates to the negative impact to public safety, and civil rights.
Right, and we're seeing negative impacts on both civil rights and public safety, and of course those things are linked, right? Because you can't really have public safety without civil rights. And what we were seeing were problems in certain areas that it was concerning, both because these are problems in and of themselves, that's concerning, but also because they were the same problems DOJ had identified that these communities needed to work on. So one example is escalating in mental health crises. When they know someone is having a mental health crisis and the police officers engage in actions that actually increase the likelihood of harm and increase the need for force. We saw examples of officers using force. In one example, striking someone 7 times with a conducted energy device, what people commonly know as tasers, against someone who was in a mental health crisis, where that could have been avoided if they'd used de-escalation techniques that DOJ was saying they should be using. We also saw problems with officers using dogs. We saw this in Louisville, police dogs, where this was a problem identified by DOJ, that dogs weren't properly controlled, that they were biting people, and that the officers couldn't get them off of people once they were deployed. And this causes really serious harm if these kinds of tactics aren't properly used. We also saw problems with agencies that weren't doing proper reviews of use of force. I mean, one reason that use of force is so important to document is so that the agency, the police department, can itself see what officers are doing, because that's an opportunity to step in, to correct misconduct, and to show officers the proper way to use their authority. And if you're not doing that, then that can really escalate problems with police departments. And we saw, unfortunately, indications in some of these agencies that those reviews really weren't happening, or worse, that those who were doing the review were trying to really cover up misconduct rather than to intervene to correct it.
Greg?
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Jen, for your work. I was reading the What Comes Next section of your report, and as you talk about it, continuing litigation for records requests and pushing folks and giving more information so policymakers and others can really push for transparency, accountability, and progressive reform. I'm thinking about Harris County, Roland's home ground there in Texas, and how the Texas Supreme Court ruled that the state is trying to stop support for nonprofits that are helping immigrants down there, and as these people are escalating, picking up folk and harassing folk. Have there been attempts to stop the ACLU, either in the lawsuits or by policymakers trying to drain your resources or prevent you from filing these cases and these records requests? And if so, have you approached for pushing back against those kind of things?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, there were a lot of agencies that really delayed in giving us information. And, this is information that under state laws, they have to turn over. And even though that obligation was really clear, a lot of these agencies really delayed. We had law enforcement agencies like in Memphis, where they just said no. They refused to provide any of this information that under state law they're required to give us until we filed lawsuits. And the problem is not just that takes resources from lawyers like me, but also that, it's really supposed to be that people in communities should be able to get information about their police departments so they understand what's going on and so that they can be informed when they go to their local policymakers to try to get change to protect them from police abuse. And so this was really concerning that we saw so many police departments really abuse their control over police records to really delay and try to cover police actions. But what we're doing is we know that change can happen, and it comes from folks in communities who are really pushing for police reform and working with people who have power in their communities to get that reform to happen. That's the way we really see change in policing. And so we, in this campaign, we partnered with groups in these different states so that they could get this information and then try to take it to their communities and to the people who represent them in their local towns to try to get this change, to keep moving it forward, even though DOJ was abandoning them, and try to interrupt the progress towards reform.
Thank you.
All right, Larry.
Thank you for sharing some of the details on the report. Over the last several months, we've seen, a lot of federal involvement in terms of immigration enforcement in jurisdictions throughout the United States. And I'm wondering if you're seeing anything, some reports, data, and talking to people on the ground in terms of, has that some of these federal interventions in any way supercharged like local excessive force reports at all? And like I said, as you've seen these trends over the last couple of months, Minnesota, among other jurisdictions throughout the United States.
We have seen two ways that the Trump administration's abandonment of police reform and encouragement of police misconduct has come up in police departments that are local and state police departments. One is with the federal government sort of coming in and forcing local police departments or pushing local police departments to engage in these aggressive tactics. We're seeing this in Memphis, for example, one of the places where Trump tore up findings of racial targeting and excessive force. They then went in under an order from Trump with federal agents to really flood Memphis with both federal agents and state and local law enforcement working together on this, using the same tactics. That there's been excellent reporting showing that these tactics are racial targeting and that they're using excessive and aggressive tactics. So the same ones that Memphis was supposed to get reform on, now Trump is turbocharging those with this influx of federal actors. And we also see that that's sort of encouraging aggressive and racially targeted practices from other local police departments.
Jen, tell folks where they can go read the report.
You can find it on our website, ACLU.org. It's called Regressive Policing Under President Trump. We hope you'll read it and that you'll help to fight back against police abuse.
All right, Jen, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a bunch for the great work. Folks, we'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. It comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You want to support our work via Cash App. Use a striped QR code. You see it right here. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com for ways to give. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
A decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads.
Let's go!
We show up not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together, we organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
Hey, I'm Tasha Cobbs, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. But I need a little filter. I need something. Blow me out. Make me look 35.
Folks, I have been reading Howard Bryant's book. You might have seen our conversation with him. It is called Kings and Pawns, Jackie Robinson and Paul Robeson in America. It's a fascinating book. And what it deals with this clash that took place between two individuals who actually never, ever met. I'm still stunned that Paul Robeson and Jackie Robinson never met, considering they were, in essence, two of the biggest Black figures in America at the time. And it talks about when how Branch Rickey pretty much wanted Jackie Robinson, and how he arranged and set it up for him to testify before Congress against Paul Robeson. And Paul Robeson was being branded a communist, and Paul Robeson wouldn't fall for the okie doke. And Robeson was making it perfectly clear that he was a patriotic American, but he was not going to simply have the same view of patriotism as white folks. And so Jackie Robinson was being hailed as the right African American, the right person. They love that phrase, be a credit to your race. And so Robinson testifies before the House Un-American Committee. But when you understand Jackie Robinson in this book, you'll see that as he continued his career, his view of America changed. His view when it came to the flag changed. When it came to the Star-Spangled Banner changed. In fact, if you read Jackie Robinson's book, I Never Had It Made, he said that he couldn't salute that flag and the Star-Spangled Banner because of how Black folks were treated. Then you start thinking about Black folks in the military. You start thinking about what they endured, and after World War I and World War II, Black soldiers were coming back, and there were fights in depots. Like literally, as they're getting off of the trains, how in World War II, Nazi prisoners of war were put in the cars ahead of Black soldiers, and these were Nazis. We can go on and on and on. And so what white folk don't seem to understand is Black folks' perspective of American patriotism is far different from theirs. It's apple pie. It's everything is great. America is wonderful. That is not how Black folks actually see it. And Associated Press did a poll dealing with this whole issue, and it shows you the different view. 3 out of 10 African Americans said that they display the American flag. Just 22% view it as a unifying symbol. In contrast, 55% of white Americans see the flag as a unifying symbol. Researchers explain that many Black respondents have a different perspective on the flag due to the historical context of slavery, segregation, and ongoing racial discrimination. Participants also say the flag represents not only what Black Americans have fought to achieve, but also the freedoms the country has yet to deliver. You've heard me say this also. Every time you see an instance of police brutality, there is a U.S. flag that is on the shoulder of that police officer. So this poll is not shocking to me, Greg. And this right here is the point that a lot of people don't seem to really understand. In fact, I'm going to pull it in a second. We're going to play it. There's been a lot of conversation when Obama answered a question about white slaveholders and was still calling them genius. And folks are like, man, what the hell are you talking about? And this is the thing that people don't get. And Greg, in light of folks who don't understand how W.E.B. Du Bois laid this out. This view for black people, that it's this sort of, this two-face, this two-ness, and how we've seen this country, and we still view this country in a completely different way than white folks, even if you're an African American of means and you have risen to a certain level.
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, I think for Dr. Du Bois, as for so many others, the idea of patriotism is the problem. In many ways, patriotism is a step toward fascism. And for Dr. Du Bois, who talked, as you said, in the souls of black folk and for a decade of the 20th century about that double consciousness, whenever feels his consciousness as an American and Negro, two warring souls in one dark body whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. That's a problem that Du Bois grappled with, but he lived another 60 years. And by the time he left for Ghana, and of course you stood at his gravesite, you stood at the gravesite of W.B. Du Bois and Shirley Graham Du Bois there in Accra. He understood that he was a citizen of the world, as was Paul Robeson. And of course, anybody who has missed the conversation you had with our brother Howard Bryant around Kings and Pawns owes it to himself, I think, to go back and watch that in the Black Star Network archive. Because Howard does trace that fight, the 1950s, the so-called Red Scare. The Red Scare relied on the idea of patriotism to try to split black people in the United States off from the struggles around the world. And they were largely successful. So many Negroes wrapped themselves in the flags, but not the rank and file black folk. We're talking about the kind of black elites who may try to negotiate differently than the masses of black people. When we see our friends, we just passed the birthday of Dory Ladner, the late Dory Ladner ancestor. Her sister Joyce still lives here in the D.C. area, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Those SNCC students waving flags weren't doing it out of patriotism. They were doing it to raise the question of the hypocrisy. How dare you assault us with these flags? They stood outside the funeral at 16th Street Baptist Church. There's a famous picture of Dory Ladner standing there with an American flag next to Donna Moses, now Marimba Ani, as we know. And I raise all that to say this, finally. The question of patriotism is really, in many ways, the question of how you try to mash everybody into one concept of being human and cover it up with a lie. Sinclair Lewis, the writer, said that when fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. And so black people reject that, including black people in the military. You will never find me waving an American flag. And as Jack Robinson said, he could not stand for it when he, as you said, and I never had it made. He said, I can't stand for it. This man was a veteran who they tried to run out of the army. This is a man who had near the end of his life, he didn't even make it to 60 years old. Hair snow white with diabetes. His wife, Rachel, who still walks the earth, is like, the stress alone sent my husband to an early grave. Jack Robinson was like, I will not salute the flag. I know what it cost. And so, yeah, it's a complicated story, Roland. I'm glad you're raising it here on the eve of the 4th of July, because it's not something that black people talk about publicly much, it seems to me.
Larry, we're going to be airing after this show the famous Frederick Douglass speech, what does it mean to the slave of the 4th of July? And what I had a bunch of different entertainers and others and activists who read different portions of that speech. And I thank Pauletta Washington, Sam Jackson, and others who did it. And so we run that every year about this time. And when I think about that, I think about those amazing Harlem Hellfighters, World War I, who saw more combat than anybody else. More than 3,000 went to World War I. Half came back. And how they were received by the French. And how the French embraced them and shared with them. And then a memo was written. Now these are black soldiers fighting on behalf of the United States. And a memo is written and is sent to the French to admonish them to stop treating the black soldiers so well. The memo says, don't do this because they might have other feelings about how they should be treated when they come back home. They wanted the French to engage in Jim Crow segregation against black troops and and the French were like, the hell y'all talking about? These are American troops. And then I think about reading Ethan McKayle's book on the Chicago Defender. I think about the reality that this Department of Defense threatened to arrest black newspaper publishers, including John Sinstack of the Chicago Defender, to charge them with treason because they dared to write about the racism that black troops were facing in World War II. They came that close. And so here are black papers saying, well, wait a minute. We're simply covering a reality. No, y'all are causing dissension in the ranks. So what white America said to black people in World War I, in World War II, in Korea, in Vietnam, what they said to John Carlos and Tommy Smith in Mexico City. Hey, I need y'all to put all that aside because you're representing America. And when you represent America, you're supposed to be appreciative. And you're supposed to drape yourself in the flag. And last point, Larry, Jesse Owens said, Hitler did not disrespect me. It was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt who would not receive me at the White House. That's the history of black folks in this country, and that's why we can't look at that flag the same way.
Roland, you preached the whole word, and we really need to have a series on this. And so let's unpack a few things in this complicated relationship that black folks have with patriotism, the flag, etc. And throughout our first Africans that arrived here in 1619. So one of the things you mentioned in terms of the U.S. military then is also talk about today in Secretary Hegseth and what we're hearing about black military officers who deserve promotions who are having their names removed. So you talked about World War I, World War II, specifically those issues relating to blatant discrimination still exist in a post-racial society, right? So we've gone a full circle and are still dealing with the same issues that those same brave soldiers that Harlem Hellfighters, among others, dealt with during World War II. I think the other point is, you mentioned Du Bois and Brother Carr talked about double consciousness. The other thing that Du Bois talked about is the veil in terms of, and Souls of Black Folk, in terms of how black folks in white America view what it is like in terms of this racial caste system. And so black intellectuals and other folks, civil rights leaders, have been talking about this complicated relationship of how we view the flag for decades. You talked about Frederick Douglass, right? Who predates Du Bois, right? We keep talking, once again, that full circle moment. I think ultimately we find ourselves in is it's like being caught in a time warp, right? When you repeat the same, like Groundhog Day, a racial Groundhog Day, we're forced to repeat the same events, but in different times, over and over again. And Dr. Carr made the point about people seeing our humanity and being careful mentally to not internalizing that and let people think that we are inhuman and allowing them to dehumanize us. But overall, as black folks, we have to continue to fight for what is our rights, because we fought to dismantle Jim Crow, and those Great Society programs, among other really key tenets, have been dismantled. And once again, we're full circle and right back where we were, where my parents were. I want to note, lastly, Roland, that my parents were born during Jim Crow. I'm first generation post Jim Crow. My son now has to deal with some of the same challenges that my parents did in a different era and not benefit from all the hard work that they did and the programs I benefit from now have been removed, and he can't benefit from those programs anymore.
Derek, I don't watch soccer. I don't. Just no interest. But we have seen the photos and the videos of Michael Kuka. He is the man from the Congo. Major fan. Y'all should pull his photo up. Come on. And he stands at games in a still pose. And the tribute is to national hero Patrice Lumumba. And for folk who don't understand Patrice Lumumba, one of the leaders who freed the Congo from the control of the racist, heinous, despicable Belgium. For those of you, and I know I'm not at home, so I don't have the book with me. I know Greg got that book back there. Y'all need to read the book on King Leopold, who killed more Congolese than Hitler killed Jews in Germany, and how they raped and pillaged that country. And it was this country, and Greg had the author of the book, where it was President Dwight Eisenhower who became the first president on record to call for the assassination of a foreign leader. And that leader was Lumumba. It was the CIA involved in that. Killed by a firing squad. Body dissolved with acid because it did not want his grave site to become a memorial. The only thing left was a tooth. And that tooth has been residing in Belgium ever since. But I want to read a couple of things. His last words, first of all, this is what he wrote his wife. His last letter to her. Neither brutality nor cruelty nor torture will ever force me to ask for mercy. I prefer to die with my head held high, with unshakable faith and profound trust in the destiny of my country, than to live in submission and contempt of sacred principles. History will one day have its say, but it will not be the history taught in Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations. Africa will write its own history, and it will be a history of glory and dignity. But these were the final words to his countrymen. When y'all have that Lumumba video, I need to roll it, please. He said, "My dear countrymen, in joy and in sorrow, I will always be with you. It was together with you that I fought to free my country from foreign rule. Together with you, I'm fighting to strengthen our national independence. Together with you, I will fight to preserve the integrity and national unity of the Republic of the Congo. Neither cruelty nor violence nor torture will make me beg for mercy, because I prefer to die with my head raised high with unshakable faith in my country's predestination, rather than live in submission, forsaking my sacred principles." It was that flag. It was the Dulles brothers. It was this country that killed him, that led to the devastating reign, deadly reign, evil reign of Mobutu. So when the Congolese see that flag, I wonder what they think. When other African nations see that flag, what do they think? See, this is what white people cannot understand. What they cannot, that's why in our studio, I had that poster from Birth of a Nation from Nate Parker, where the American flag has a noose around his neck. We simply do not see the flag in the same way that they do, because they do not have our life story.
Reason why we don't view that flag the same way. And I certainly agree with my dear brothers. We don't see it the same way because we take a comprehensive view. See, for those who say that we should wrap ourselves with the flag, they talk about the triumph. But we see tragedy and scars with this flag. We see that this Constitution, that for those of us who served, and I served 22 years, I'm a retired lieutenant commander. Our oath is on a flawed document around the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so while we're out there serving, we see America doing something very different. I mean, it's incredulous when they say we want to export democracy to these other countries, but yet they're not practicing democracy right here in the United States. We have a long history. Let's go back to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment of the Constitution. So this country, where I had the opportunity to serve for 22 years, I raised my hand and gave the oath. But before they can even free those who look like us, before they even talk about the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, they were talking about guns. The Second Amendment, they were talking about search and seizure. They were talking about all the other things first. We don't look at the flag the same way because they do not have the scars. They don't carry the scars the same way. Let's unpeel this just a little bit more, deeper, right? I mean, when you look at slavery and you want to put in the Constitution that we're 3/5 of a man, so every military black man in all the wars that you described, the very thing that they wanted most, Roland, they wanted to be looked upon as a man. I just finished watching the 24th on Netflix, and he gave his life at the end because he said, I am a man. I'm not just a subject. You don't want to send me to war. You treat me in one manner, and you saying I'm going to serve this country. You want me to wrap myself with this flag, but you don't even see me as a man. That's the reason why, and I have the flag behind me to remind those every time someone comes to my home that I serve this country. So when they ask, you're not patriotic, how dare you? And I know we're going to talk about this later on about how they arrested an individual, a military officer, because he is trying to do exactly what the oath required for him to do. The problem is, Roland, he's doing it against a person that is a 34-time felon. As a person that has enriched himself, as a person that has trampled on this country's constitution, has trampled against the rule of law. He has done everything what the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 88, told me not to do as a military officer. That's the reason why we do not see this flag the same way as others who embrace this flag the way we do not embrace it. It is complicated.
Yeah.
Yes, we serve this country. Yes, we are a man.
And that's why.
You cannot disrespect us.
And that's why as they are celebrating America 250, we have these shirts up on our shopblackstarnetwork.com site. And y'all go ahead and pull it up for me. I'm going to read Paul Robeson first. I'm going to read Paul. Is that no? Y'all have the James. I'm going to do the Paul Robeson first. So let me read for y'all the Paul Robeson. And again, see what Donald Trump has done. Donald Trump wants to present that other view, that other perspective of American history. And see, what they want to do is they want to present the whitewashed view of American history. But for us, it's about truly sharing with you what freedom fighters stood for. This was what Paul Robeson said. This is our home, and this is our country. Beneath its soil lie bones of our fathers. For it, some of them fought, bled, and died. Here we were born, and here we will stay. And we're actually making a change. We're going to put America 250 above that. See, I want us to have a different perspective. This is the James Baldwin shirt. I love America more than any other country in this world. And exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to criticize her perpetually. That's why we have a different perspective of the flags. Quick break, we come back. We'll chat with Morgan Harper about the new job numbers and what happened to this golden economy we were promised. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, let me tell you about Chapter. Now, if you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no strangers to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing: what works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that too. There are no games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes and a real person. It's completely free. My parents actually have already called. My mom sent me a text. Folks, give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust. Folks, these are the kind of services that we need for our audience here at Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. So call Chapter right now, 724-264-8281.
Melanie Campbell, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable. And we are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered all day, every day, 24/7. Spread the word.
Last month, oh my goodness, Scott Bessent, Donald Trump, they were all hyped regarding the jobs report. Oh, it wasn't as good as they said. This month's report, just 57,000 jobs were added, well below the 113,000 economists expected. Now, the overall unemployment dropped to 4.2%. That's because folks, frankly, have stopped looking for a job. Black unemployment rate remains the same at 6.6%. For black men, dropped to 5.8%. Black women increased slightly to 5.7%. We're joined now by Morgan Harper, Director of Policy and Advocacy of the American Economic Liberties Project. Morgan, glad to have you here. So tell us about those revisions for May, Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of enthusiasm from the White House with those numbers last month that they were, or from May, that they were over 100,000. But, you know, as we discussed, even within those, there was some more nuance. But now we are getting confirmation that there has to be a downward revision of tens of thousands. And so I think over the last 2 months, the revision now, it's lowering it by over 70,000 jobs in total, which is, you know, pretty significant. But like we talk about, I mean, we have been talking about the last couple of years, Roland, you know, we have to kind of take these things as a snapshot. It's hard to draw too many firm conclusions from just 1 month. But even looking at the last couple of months, I think we continue to see an economy that has these little signs of vulnerabilities, and that, you know, all is not well, despite what the White House might be saying.
Well, this is the thing that I think we can draw, and that's this. They have been promising, oh, it's going to be it's going to be a great economy. It's going to be unbelievable. That has not materialized. And they could, I mean, in fact, I think CNN or MS Now, one of them, put a mashup together of all of these moving of the goalposts when it comes to this economy, and they keep promising, oh, no, the next quarter is going to be amazing. It's going to be stunning. It's going to be incredible. It hasn't happened.
Yeah, and I think this month, seeing that we have just over 50,000 jobs now, the White House and some of the analysts on Wall Street that are responsible will be like, well, that's growth that's happening. But you dig in and kind of like one of the things you highlighted at the beginning, you see folks that are not getting full-time work, even though they want to be working. So folks that are stuck in part-time jobs, that seems to be increasing. And actually, if you look at those that are working more in part-time than full-time, that unemployment, you're seeing that unemployment rate of 7.9%. So that does feel a little bit more like a statistic that is incorporating the facts of reality that people are experiencing. As yes, I might have a job, but I'm not working as many hours that I would like to, or that I could be working. And it's not the type of stable job that someone might be looking for. I think another interesting indicator right now is, connected to that labor force participation and how that might be declining, is people who are out of work are staying out of work longer, and much more so than even a year ago. That share is up to 27.3%. And then, in terms of the age group, where who are these people that would be working more if they could, but they aren't? It is this prime age, people who are in their mid to late 20s, all the way up to early 50s. These are your primary, for all of us, primary earning years. It's when you could be working a lot. You're less likely to have health problems. And we have folks in this category that are not working as much as they would like. That is not a good sign at all. The other thing that I would note, and this is something that we've talked about before too, is the type of job. One of the areas that we continue to see in these numbers too that is creating jobs is healthcare. And though, that again, not lining up with this promise of the booming manufacturing economy that we've heard from the administration. And even where we are seeing an uptick in a different category than has happened in prior months. So this month's numbers is showing an increase in jobs created in the professional business sector. That is, if I could think of something that's probably the opposite of manufacturing jobs, it would be, professional business sector. That's a good thing. Jobs created, good. But, those jobs, I would think, more likely to be higher income earners, more likely to be people who could have advanced education. And this is getting to one of the other themes that I think we see this month that we're going to have to continue to monitor, that has been in many ways the story of the American economy over the last several decades, really, is this break between those who are in more wage jobs, lower income earners, and folks that are earning six figures above, millionaire, beyond, that continue to see growth in a strong economy. And so that's why another indicator that they look at from the White House that we're seeing over this last week is that the stock market is doing well, despite all of these areas of uncertainty for the average person. Those that are earning the most continue to seem to be doing really well, and they are able to continue to ride this wave of things like, an AI boom, that's also going to come to fruition. But the main point, again, is that is not lining up with what the promise is, that it's broad-based economic growth for the average American. And the only other thing I'd say before I turn it over back to you, Roland, is prices. So the wage growth, that is another positive indicator. If you look at it by itself, that workers are earning more money, but that has been increased about 3% from this time last year, 3.5%, while prices, the inflation rate is going up by 6%, not adding up at all for the average person to try to maintain their household and keep up with the cost of living.
And listen, I just think, frankly, Donald Trump is living off the remnants of the Biden-Harris economy. Same thing that happened in the first term. All of his big, beautiful bill, which is a big, ugly bill, none of that stuff has spurred what they said is going to happen. You take the tariffs, you take the uncertainty over that, you take the war with Iran, the actions they've taken have been horrendous for the economy, and they can try to keep spinning it. And, of course, Fox News is never going to call them out, but they know this economy is trash, and it is not this golden economy. It ain't even silver. It's barely bronze.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting how this all plays out because, yeah, like you're saying, I mean, nothing that has happened over the last year, war in Iran, gas prices, even if they're leveling off, I mean, those have gone up quite a bit. Nothing that's happening is reaching the average American worker, consumer, all of us real people in a positive way. And so I don't think it's an accident that, you know, if we shift to the political situation a little bit, that we're starting to see people voting for candidates in a lot of these primaries that are like, burn it down. We need like a complete reset in terms of what's happening in Washington. And again, it's going to be interesting, though, just how much of the blame gets ascribed to Donald Trump and this administration versus an overall status quo critique. And how much they're going to be able to really trick people into thinking that they've produced good results when the numbers just aren't showing that at all.
All right, then, Morgan Harper, we surely appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Roland.
All right, folks, you might have seen the stories over the last couple of days that Donald Trump released his financial reports. And it shows that in the last year, he's literally earned almost $2 billion. Most of that is through crypto. Oh, y'all remember what he said about crypto in 2019? Pull it up, please. This is what he tweeted. I'm not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money, and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity. Well, then again, when you are a twice impeached, criminally convicted felon in chief, who also has been found liable of rape, then you don't mind unlawful activity. And so Donald Trump all of a sudden has embraced crypto. And here's what's hilarious. His poor little white fans, the people who think he is a little G God, they have gotten taken to the cleaners. One person who invested some $33,000 in Donald Trump's coin, it's now worth less than $100, is angry. Not at him, but at the Democrats. I'm still trying to understand that one. These people have been taken to the cleaners, and they still love him to death. Y'all heard me say he wouldn't even let these people walk through his hotel lobby. And what we are seeing is the greatest crime of anyone in the Oval Office. Y'all, you know it's bad when the Rupert Murdoch-owned conservative Wall Street Journal in an editorial calls out the way Donald Trump has enriched himself. And y'all, they ain't even hiding this. You've got Peter Navarro literally calling the Defense Department, telling them, no, y'all loan this company $600 million that Donald Trump Jr. is an investor in. Oh, and again, Trump's financial report, again, that's just him. That doesn't cover Ivanka, Eric, and Donald Jr. and his other two children. Folks, we are seeing this nation ripped off. That BS state fair, oh my God, Democrats are alleging that there were donors who were going to give to the official America 250 committee were being diverted to Donald Trump's group. He's using taxpayer money to do all sorts of things. And then, of course, this is him bragging that, oh, I'm the first person who's in the Oval Office who doesn't accept my salary. Y'all have the clip? So, this is what's crazy. I want to bring in Tim Wise right now. Tim has been on the show before. Tim, anti-racist educator. Tim, you've called these people out in speeches and others. And I'm just sitting here going, don't you idiots, we try to tell you idiots this. That man don't care about y'all. He ran for president again to stay out of jail, and so he can get rich. And the broke white folks who love him, who buy, them fools bought his little cheap ass watch. They bought the watch. They buy his coins. They buy his Bibles. They buy all this stuff. And you know what, Tim? To him, they're nothing but marks. They're just marks. So check this out. Trump, in the last year, tax documents show, Trump made $10 million. He made $4.7 million on those cheap ass watches, $1 million on the art of the deal, $208,000 on the God Bless the USA Bible with Lee Greenwood. His Trump coins manufactured by a Chinese company, $493,000. Trump's 2023 picture book, A MAGA Journey, $552,000. How to Get Rich book, $15,000. A picture book of letters written to Trump called Letters to Trump, $590,000. His 2024 picture book, Save America, $1.89 million. The Trump sneakers and fragrances, $67,000. The 45 guitar, $35,000. The Think Like a Champion book, $5,000. Why We Want You to Be Rich book, $2,500. The Way to the Top book, $1,000. And all his broke ass supporters, they're at the bottom.
Right. Well, the problem, you know, is that when you have, in fact, been taken for a ride the way that these people have been, and for so long, the challenge is that I think there comes a point, there's a tipping point where being able to acknowledge that you've been a sucker becomes almost impossible, right? You get to a point where you just can't face the fact that you have been taken for a ride the way that they have been by such a con man. And so you have to rationalize what you've done. And one of the best ways that you can rationalize it, of course, is by reminding yourself, well, at the very least, this guy hates the people I hate, right? And so I will overlook all of that. I'll overlook the grift and the graft. I will overlook all of the ripoffs. I will overlook the meme coin nonsense. I will overlook all of this corruption because at the very least, I know that on a tribal level, right, he's on my side. He's on my team against the people that I don't like, against the black and brown folks that I don't like, against the LGBTQ folks that I don't like, against all the immigrants and the foreigners who I don't like, against whoever, right, that I don't like. And that's the kind of politics that Trump's been about from the beginning. You and I both know, we all know, because the research tells us, as well as common sense, that it was never about economics for these people. It was never about the price of eggs. It was never about the price of gas. It was never about any of that stuff. It was always about tribalism from the time that he came down the elevator or the escalator in Trump Tower back in 2015 and started talking about immigrants on day one, started talking about, you know, rapists and murderers and drug dealers and all of that. It's been about that from the beginning. And this last election, when many of us thought, and Kamala Harris certainly did, right? When he started talking about Haitians eating cats and dogs. And I remember, we all remember she laughed about it in the debate. And I think some of us thought, oh my God, he's jumped the shark. He's lost his mind. That's going to cost him the election, surely. And of course it didn't, right? Didn't hurt him at all, because that was a symbolic tribal signal to certain white folks in this country, frankly. And, you know, I've been white for a long time. We've had this conversation before. Never underestimate the ability of white folks to put aside all of common sense and their own economic well-being to signal their willingness to resort to tribal politics and to say, well, yeah, I don't have much and he's not going to do much for me, but at least he's going to kick those people harder, right? He's going to punish them harder. At least I know that he's going to stick it to them more than he's going to stick it to me, and I'm not going to be in last place. There's this thing that white working class and lower income and struggling people are willing to do and have been willing to do for 400 years, right? Going back to the colonies for 400 years. As long as we're not last place, as long as there's somebody beneath us, whether that's enslaved black folk, right? Even when we were indentured servants, even when some of us were just one level above enslaved. Well, as long as those folks are permanent servants, enslaved people, then we're better. right? And then later on, well, yeah, we're poor and we're landless and we don't have much, but we're not enslaved, or we're poor and we don't have much, but at least we're not segregated into schools on that side of town, and we're allowed to own property. It might not be much, but at least it's something, and we're allowed to vote. And yeah, we don't like the candidates, but at least we can vote. Like, there's always that ability to be above somebody, and that is a politic that has consistently worked on a certain very large subset of white Americans, and Trump knows that. And that's why he knows that he can get away with all of these things, because there are enough people who will give him a pass on that. And that's the thing that I think Democrats haven't been able to figure out, right? They just haven't been able to figure out, how do you respond to a politician? Because they continue to think that if they just talk about affordability, if they just have a good plan to bring down prices, that all of a sudden white folks will go, oh, okay, you've got a better, broadband internet access in rural America, really? Let me sign up for that. Oh, you've got a plan to lower the price of eggs? Oh, okay, well then I'll vote for you. But the reality is Democrats have had better plans for that, and it didn't work. Democrats have had better policy positions, and it doesn't work because they're not willing to confront openly the bigotry and the racism, and to say openly that we are going to confront this legacy of racism in America and demand that America be something better, because they're afraid to challenge anti-Blackness. And as long as they're afraid to do that, we're going to keep marinating in it like we have for 400 years.
I specifically told Senator Bernie Sanders, I told Senator Elizabeth Warren and others, y'all need to be talking to white folk. Y'all need to be going to those places and looking them in the eye and say, listen, I said this to Obama in the White House, and I said this to Valerie Jarrett. I said, man, why y'all going to the suburbs of Virginia and Ohio touting the Affordable Care Act? I said, no. Y'all need to go to the reddest, whitest, sickest parts of Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, and look them in the eye and say, I passed this for y'all, because y'all are the sickest people in the state. But they don't want to do that. And what you have here, you have the richest cabinet in American history, led by this thug-in-chief. And Democrats should be sitting here saying, yeah, you want to know why your farmers, why y'all filing for bankruptcy? Because that fool sat here again, issued the tariffs. Oh, and while he's issuing the tariffs, he made off with $2 billion in crypto money, and y'all ain't making none. I would be sitting here, all these people, so I just saw some machinist lost $34,000, and this fool is sitting here blaming Democrats because he lost it. No, that's your boy. It is known. The Atlantic has a story where it is well known that you can buy a pardon for at least $2 million and you good.
Right. And they need to be and let me be clear. They can talk about that corruption, and they should, but they need to be saying to these white voters specifically that while he is making off with all this money, please pay attention to what he's telling y'all, which is that the reason you're in pain is because of black folk taking your money, because of Somalian fraud, not his fraud, not rich white man fraud, but Somalian fraud. He's playing hide the ball. He's playing 3-card Monty. He's playing, he's doing some David Copperfield nonsense, right? He's playing a magician's trick. So it's fraud, all right. But it's rich white dudes like him. And meanwhile, he's telling you it's black folk. He's telling you it's brown folk, right? So that you'll be mad at them. So you've got to kill two birds with one stone. Yeah, you can talk about corruption and the oligarchy and all the stuff Bernie likes to talk about and those folks like to talk about. But you've got to also make it clear to these folks that the anti-blackness and the anti-brown bigotry is the weapon that is being used to trick them. You cannot run from that. And what bothers me about the Democratic Party, and what bothers me about certain folks on the left of the Democratic Party, is they don't mind talking about the rich folk stuff. They don't mind bashing rich folk as rich folk. They'll talk about class all day long. They'll talk about the oligarchy. Bernie will get up and say the billionaires and the millionaires and the oligarchy, but he will not talk about the anti-blackness that is the flip side of that, because it's both of those things. It's rich folk stuff and white folk stuff. And you have to talk about both of those things because it's a 1-2 punch. And the only way that you're going to build a coalition to defend multiracial democracy, which is what we have to build in this country for really the first time, because the only time we ever really had it was that brief period of Reconstruction. And it got overthrown just like they're trying to overthrow it right now and are effectively doing that. The only way you're going to build it is to call out the rich folk stuff for sure, because the overthrow of Reconstruction was also on behalf of the planter class that was that oligarchy. But you got to also call out the white supremacy. And I'm afraid they're afraid to do that. And you can't be afraid to do that, A, because it's the honest truth, but also B, because strategically, if you don't call it out, you send a message to those black folks and brown folks that you are not really behind them and on their side. And then you get surprised when they sit out the election or they don't come out enthusiastically for you. And then you're like, and then you blame them for the fact that you didn't win an election, or you blame them for the fact that you didn't gain as many seats in the midterms as you might otherwise have gained. You've got to ensure that everybody in your base is coming out and that you're bringing over those potential swing voters. And you can't do that if you leave any part of that message on the table, unaddressed.
Derek?
Tim, I appreciate your work. And you have written over the years extensively around this whiteness. But I want to drill down in the anti-blackness. I'm a state legislator right here in Georgia. And every time we go into the rural parts of Georgia, we don't have the right message. And I mean, listening to you, I don't have the right message because I keep talking about hospital closures. I keep talking about minimum wage. I keep talking about the same thing as a poor white person may want to think about as a poor black person. I need 2 or 3 specific things I can take to rural Georgia around this anti-blackness, because if I frame it right, it won't be considered just as racism.
Right. Well, I think you got to talk about the rural hospital closures, but I think the big thing, look, we know from the research on this that the reason that we have inadequate healthcare safety nets in this country for everybody, including those white folks in those rural areas, and I should point out a lot of black folks in rural areas, because there are plenty of black folks in rural America. We don't act like there are. There are plenty of black folks in Appalachia. We act like Appalachia is just a white area. It's not either. But the reason we don't have adequate healthcare for people generally, according to the research, is because of the belief, mistaken belief, but the belief on a part of a lot of white Americans that if we had truly universal healthcare, if we had truly like single payer universal healthcare, the way that all those European countries that we love to compare ourselves to, if we had that, according to the research, large numbers of white Americans think that black people would take advantage of the program and would somehow cheat on that program the way they do, quote unquote, on other so-called safety net programs. So in other words, our racial biases against black folks sponging off the welfare state is the reason that we don't have a more secure safety net, including healthcare. What does that mean? It means that white folks in rural areas who need better healthcare, who need more secure hospitals, who need better programs, who need Medicaid funding, who need more secure healthcare safety nets generally don't have them. So what those folks need to hear is, yes, number one, these people don't love you. These people don't care about you. These people are more than willing to sacrifice your healthcare for some billionaire's tax cut or whatever. That's the class argument. But number two, what y'all need to understand is the reason that they can get away with this is because healthcare in this country, just like public education in this country, just like public housing, just like public transportation, anything with the word public in front of it has become associated with black and brown people. And once it's associated with black and brown people, it becomes vulnerable to budget cutting. And so these white folks end up getting hurt because any kind of public good, any kind of collective good, anything done for the good of the community ends up being seen as taking from the producers, quote unquote, the makers, as Mitt Romney once called them, which are seen as white people, and given to others, seen as the takers, as Mitt Romney called them, right, which are seen as black and brown folks. So ironically, these folks end up getting hurt as the collateral damage of racial bias, the assumption that those people will cheat the program so we can't have a lot of public health spending, right? So that's a way to connect the issue of race to the issue of socioeconomics. It's not that we don't talk about socioeconomics, we just have to be connecting those issues. And the problem is rural people end up getting forgotten about in the healthcare debate. Why? Because so much of the debate has been about racially scapegoating Black and brown people in the cities, right? That we don't even think about the folks in rural areas. Well, whose fault is that? That's not Black people's fault. That's not brown people's fault. That's the politicians who have spent so much time trying to talk about Somalian fraud, trying to talk about these Medicaid fraud in the cities, Black people taking advantage of the programs that rural people and their needs just aren't even discussed. But that's because politicians are the ones who are scapegoating people in urban areas for all the problems of healthcare, for the problems of safety nets, for the problems of any type of, sort of attempt at public spiritedness at any kind of safety net or so-called welfare program. So I think we go into those areas, but we try to make that connection between the pain that is being felt in a rural community. And this is something that Reverend Jackson used to do. It's funny, when Reverend Jackson died and we had all these retrospectives, it was almost like people forgot. This is the kind of argument that Reverend Jackson was making in 84 and in 88. And everybody, in retrospect, you have people say, Reverend Jackson was such a race man. All he ever talked about was race. And that wasn't true. I remember those campaigns in 84 and 88. And he would go into those farming communities, right? When the farm crisis was hitting in 85 and 84 and 85, 86, he would go into those communities. And this is the argument he would make. He would make these arguments about corporate farms buying up family farms, and he would link the pain that those mostly white farmers were feeling with the pain that Black farmers whose land had been stolen from them, the pain they were feeling. He would link it up with labor union fights in urban areas. He was one of the few people doing that. And yet everybody thought that all he ever talked about was Black folks. And that was so ironic because that was not at all what his politic was. But that just goes to show you how the media spends it. The media acts like all Black folks ever talk about is Black folks, when Black folks actually have the most ecumenical politic of all, talking about everybody's needs, and it's white politicians who ignore Black folks' needs.
Larry and Greg, and I literally.
By the way, I want to say hi to
left.
Greg. I haven't seen Greg in a minute. I need to say hi to my high
here.
school friend, who I have not seen in a minute.
I got the Speaker of the House of Pennsylvania on, so real quick, Larry, then Greg, go.
So, thanks for your work. I want to just comment on the relationship between, we talked about anti-Blackness and a descent into authoritarianism for the United States. So that's the quick question I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think anti-Blackness is central to authoritarianism, and it's the thing that constantly falls out of the picture when we talk about it. Everybody talks about the descent into authoritarianism or fascism that we're seeing right now, but what we forget is that descent, just like with the overthrow of Reconstruction, that race and anti-Blackness was central to it then, it has been central to it now. That democracy and its opposite, authoritarianism in this country, has never existed separate and apart from the issue of race and anti-Blackness. It has always been the canary in the coal mine. It has always been the cutting edge of that descent into authoritarianism. It has always been the first thing that happens, the first community that gets sacrificed. If you look at history, every time you see the word compromise in front of a policy, right? Whether we're talking about the Compromise of 1877, whether we're talking about the Missouri Compromise, whether we're talking about, you just look at any kind of thing that says compromise, whose interests are usually getting compromised at the end of that, sentence, at the end of that policy. It's usually Black folks who are getting compromised, right? Their interests, their needs are being the ones that are getting the 3/5 compromise, right? Whose interests are getting compromised. So every time that we move away from democracy, typically, traditionally, the interests that are being compromised are going to be those of Black people. And so right now, when we talk about the movement away from democracy, we see what the Supreme Court has just done in the Calais decision. We see what the Supreme Court has done with the revocation of temporary protected status. Look at who that is disproportionately affecting. Look at the rhetoric that is being used in that decision. You see over and over and over again in court decisions and legislative actions and executive orders from the president, that as we move into a more autocratic administration, an autocratic future, that almost every single one of those decisions is rooted in anti-Black animus. And yet the Supreme Court does nothing about it. In fact, you have Samuel Alito saying, even with the rhetoric aimed at Haitians that is clearly racist, you have a Samuel Alito saying, well, that's not obviously racist, it's just heated rhetoric. So what the Supreme Court has now said is that it's racist to do anything to increase the number of Black students in colleges and universities. It's racist to increase the Black political power by refusing to dilute their vote, but it's not racist to call Haiti a shithole nation and to say that Haitians are eating animals and that they are dirty and poisoning the blood of the country. That's the kind of rhetoric that is now normalized by the Supreme Court. And that is the kind of descent into authoritarianism that we're seeing right now. There's a reason that the attacks on voting after 2020, right? Where were the places they were investigating? Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit. Why? We know why. We know why they were focusing on those communities. We know why they were going after those areas. We know why all the attempts to crack down on quote unquote voter fraud are focusing on Black communities. We understand that, right? Because those are the areas that they are essentially saying, these are the people we don't want voting. These are the people that are not legitimate voters. These are, there's a reason that North Carolina, when they set out to introduce voter ID initially, according to the courts, they targeted Black voters, according to the opinion of the court, with laser-like precision, literally asking for information on what kinds of voter ID did Black people have less than other forms of ID, because that was the kind of ID they wanted to require. Right. The kind of ID that Black people didn't have was the one they were gonna require, right? So you can see the kind of deliberate way in which anti-Blackness is at the core of this.
Greg Carr.
Thank you, Roland. It's always good to see you, Tim, man. We rep in Nashville. But I'm going to ask you very quickly, just a quick question. As it relates to the country, I don't think this is a nation. It's a country with a lot of different nations in it. And Gary Chambers would say, organize the people who are unorganized and maybe pay less attention to try to recruit some of these folks who have clearly seen themselves as outside of the circle. My question to you is about style, message and messenger, how it works, whether it be Zoran Mamdani or we see Malak Kiros in Colorado, Chris Rabb in Pennsylvania and so forth. Yeah. Thinking about John Ossoff in Georgia, he seems to have struck the right chord. I don't know if you saw him going after Jared Kushner a couple of days ago. Any thoughts on how perhaps the messenger meets with the substance and maybe distinguish between somebody like John Ossoff in Georgia and maybe James Tallarico in Texas in terms of trying to perfect a message that will bring enough people together who haven't been organized to do that work? And finally, I would say the revolt is going to come from the provinces. I think we too often take a bird's eye view of the United States as if all these people think alike. There are a lot of white people who don't think like those white folks, and a lot of Black people who are just unorganized, and some who think like Trump thinks. Now, he's an avatar. Where does style fit in this?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right.
I got about 9. Tim, 1 second. Yeah. Tim, I got about 90 seconds because I got to get to the Speaker of Pennsylvania. Go.
Gotcha. No, I think you're right. I think it does matter. And I think Ossoff and Tallarico have a style that certainly appeals to a lot of folks that need to be brought into the discussion. I think style is going to matter differently in different places. And I think we have to be open to the fact that in certain communities, one style is going to work. In other communities, other styles are going to work. I don't think we can dictate that from above. I think there's some places that are going to respond to a Tallarico and an Ossoff. Other places going to respond to someone maybe a bit different. But I think the key is we have to be on message with a clear, articulated argument that we're not going to stand for this kind of divide and conquer, this kind of anti-Blackness, pitting people against one another for the benefit of a handful of elites who are using racism in the same way that they have been using racism and anti-Blackness for hundreds of years, that it just can't stand. That message has to be delivered regardless of the style.
Well, all I'm saying to all these poor white MAGA folks, y'all got played. We tried to tell you, and trust me, y'all life ain't going to be better with him being there. Tim Wise, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Good to see y'all.
Y'all, this is a pretty one. A white Republican in Pennsylvania who arrived on the House floor wearing an American flag-themed suit jacket says he was told to either take it off or leave the floor. Eric DeVonzo claims that the Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton, who was African-American, called his jacket a costume and demanded that he either take it off or leave. Listen to him.
This is a jacket that my wife had bought me. You know, back home in the district, this is America's 250. We went to a couple 250 events. We love our country. We love America. So I'm happy to put this on. I'm proud to wear this.
That is a very colorful jacket that the representative is wearing today. Very patriotic, I see, my friend.
Everybody loved it. Come up, people gave me hugs, shaking my hands. Hey, this is great. I walked in on a floor like I always do, shaking everybody's hands. I make my rounds. Speaker McClinton's asking you to leave the floor. And I'm like, what for? And he said, well, she doesn't like your outfit. She says it's a costume. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, it's something you wouldn't wear every day. And I'm like, listen, I would wear this back home, and I'm going to wear it again. 2 to 3 minutes later, one of the security guards come up, tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, hey, the speaker's going to ask you to leave or take your jacket off. America's 250. 4th of July is 4 days away. It's a holiday weekend coming up. Why not wear it? I introduced Made in America amendments. I'm the chairman of the America First Caucus. I just introduced a bill last week that we give everybody in PA, every household, $250 to celebrate America. This wasn't a costume. This is something that I truly believe in. I'm a patriot. Instead of taking my jacket off, I'll see you later. We have an affordability crisis. People can't afford stuff. Instead of coming out here and doing the people's work, no. What are we focused on? We're focused on bullshit issues like this jacket, right? No reason whatsoever. Do the job for the people.
Well, Speaker McClinton joins us right now. Glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. He's really in his feelings. What happened here?
He's in his feelings, and it's good to be here. Happy birthday to the great nation we call home, Roland. It is not uncommon for my colleagues on both sides of the aisle from time to time, depending on what's happening in the calendar, to kind of push the envelope and say, hey, I'm going to be funny. I'm going to wear this on the floor of the House. Now, here's the thing. I am the elected Speaker of the House, but I am not in charge of what folks are doing in their office, the hallways, in the front steps of the Capitol, certainly not in their districts. But when we are on the floor of the House, just like every other great job in this great nation, there is a dress code, Roland. And my colleague knows that that was not a part of the dress code. In fact, it's not in the regular men's suit sections in any store that sells work clothes. And he wants to celebrate. We all want to celebrate. I'm going to be out in Philly on Saturday. The country was born here. What you talking about? America first. I'm all about it. Believe in this country so much, I signed up to run for office. Now, listen, Roland, I'm not just the House Speaker. I'm an attorney, I'm a preacher, and I hold the line for integrity and in following the rules. And in fact, it was many speakers before me that decided in Harrisburg that our state House floor is not for jokes, games, laughing moments, running out to the press. If you ask me, Roland, this seems like it was all planned, all strategic, and just another distraction. Because what we should have been doing on July the 1st is working on the state budget. But that gentleman, state senator, who's the president of our state Senate, dismissed the state Senate. There were Senate Republicans left early, and we have no state budget. So we are in a stalemate in Harrisburg yet again. But somehow his jacket that he has worn to appropriate events in his community, knowing that it wasn't supposed to be on the House floor because members on my side of the aisle in October, they show up with Minnie Mouse hats and they have to be told also, this is not a game. You're on the floor to change the law. You are here. You're going to be dressed appropriately. But we see every now and again, there's another MAGA distraction where folks are not complying. And we just listen to everybody on your broadcast talking about anti-racism. I won't go too far and want to exactly know why this was all set up and how you just conveniently run into a camera crew right outside of the floor of the House where that clip was taped. But you tell me what you think.
So perfect example. So let's say the Eagles or the Steelers win the Super Bowl, and a member decides to wear a jersey onto the floor. Can they?
No, they cannot. And a member from Philadelphia who shares the same Democratic Party as me did that last year when we had our trophies on the floor of the House. And that member was told immediately by the same sergeant at arms, you must take that jersey off. And this member in front of you did not have on red that day, did not have on red, white, and blue. I had on green, but it's a woman's suit. It did not say Eagles on it. It did not have Jalen Hurts' face on it. And we would have liked to done all those things. But guess what? I set the example by following the rules. And I'm up there on the microphone, go Birds, but I didn't show up. I have an Eagles jersey that says speaker on the back of it. I didn't wear it to the floor of the House, but I had it on in my office.
And I thought these are the folk who love law and order and follow the rules.
Well, that's what it's supposed to be. But you know, from the White House down to the State House, folks are just creating distractions, breaking the rules, creating headlines. I don't want to call it fake news, but the truth of the matter is we have real work we should be focused on. We have real policy we should be handling. We need to do the state's budget. His state senator from Westmoreland County, where he lives, has not come back to the Senate. She has not called them back in to vote. We do not have any report for the taxpayers that have sent us over $50 billion that we will soon appropriate on how that money will be spent. But once again, this was a manufactured distraction, and it is unfortunate that anyone would question not only my integrity, but my loyalty to this nation.
Well, I am going to ask you this here. It is another sports related, because I'm about to discuss it next with my panel here. And so obviously you are elated that a certain Jaylen Brown is now playing for Philadelphia.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My beloved Sixers got as far as we could, but New York showed us up and they went on to win. Shout out to the New York Knicks, Knicks in 5. They took care of business, but we needed some added help, and I'm so excited he's coming to Philly.
All right, then. Well, we appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the holidays and be well. Thanks a lot.
You too.
All right, then, y'all. Boy, these folk love when they love flag stuff. All right, real quick with our panel here. Y'all heard me mention Jaylen Brown's been traded from the Boston Celtics to the Philadelphia 76ers. The trade was to be finalized on Monday, but he's already announced in the statement he's leaving. But here's what's real interesting. I can't wait to get the panel weighed on this here. Colin Cowherd said this here, quote, I had 2 NBA sources, 2 people in the league, one an executive, one a scout, say that Jaylen Brown has, it's a disease. He suddenly thinks he's the smartest guy in every room he's in. You make a lot of money, suddenly you're absolutely sure you don't want to listen to your bosses, you don't want to listen to consultants, you don't want to listen to teammates. See, Larry, they really hate athletes who are brainiacs. And Jaylen Brown, that is an absolute smart brother. They hated the fact that he never signed an agent, negotiated his own deals. They hate the stuff that he's doing. And so that's what they really can't stand. They really can't stand a truly free black man.
Yeah, Roland, so let's get this out front. I'm from Philly, so I'm super excited about this trade. But that to the side.
Yeah, because y'all team is trash. Because your team is trash. You need the help.
He's back. We okay now. We good now. We good. Don't worry about it. Let's not talk about last season. Let's talk about what we're going to do this season with Jaylen Brown. All right, so I saw the comment and watched it from Carl Hurd. This is not the first time he's made ridiculous comments. He's talked about other black players in Philadelphia like Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl winning MVP. So we've been talking about anti-blackness here, and this is also anti-intellectualism. We know as black men who are successful that black men who stand up for themselves, who can talk about social, political, economic issues, and it makes certain populations uncomfortable. When you add that to the fact that he went to Cal Berkeley and also is a multimillionaire and a NBA Finals MVP, who clearly understands his status and the power he has to talk about issues he was talking about a couple months ago about creating a Black Wall Street in Boston. This is just another example of the challenges that black men who are successful when you have ownership, media, mainstream media, and other pundits who do not have the same lived experience as you. So when you don't reinforce their stereotype, it makes them feel uncomfortable. And they don't have the ability to unpack, to figure out why they feel uncomfortable and why they want to use words like, you think you're too smart, etc. So once again, this is a form of anti-blackness, but also part of the trend of anti-intellectualism that we see in this country, and it's directed at Jaylen Brown, who's going to bring a championship to my city next year.
Y'all ain't gonna win a championship, but bottom line is this here, Derek. These white NBA executives, again, they like them dumb. They don't like when they talk back.
Not only they don't like them when they talk back, but they'll try to demonize them. I mean, let's go back to not just Jaylen, but let's go. Remember when our brother that said that I'm going to leave. He was playing for Cleveland, Akron. LeBron James. LeBron James said, I'm leaving. And he went to Miami. They burned the man's jersey. Roland, they called him a non-king. They called him everything but the child of God. But when they brought LeBron James back, see, they had to eat crow. And just the same thing like Lamar Jackson that played for the Ravens, that plays for the Ravens. They do not like it when we can make our own decisions. They do not like it when we are saying, we don't care what you're going to do for other players, but when we're at this negotiating table, Roland, we're going to make the best decision for us. Because they don't know how long they're going to play. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so they realize that when we start to make our own decision, they hate it. And that's the reason why they're going to change this NIL deal too. Because these young people who are leaving high school and they realize that they have the strength in their NIL deals, you're going to see a change in that as well, because them young people are voicing where they want to go, how they want this deal to be structured. So it's the same thing. And until they change it, we're going to have strong black men and young ladies making decisions that's going to help them and their families and not the organization.
I'm confused, Greg. If a brother averages 28.7 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 5.1 assists in 71 regular season games, sounds to me like he's smart as hell. But see, what drives him, and I've seen this. I'm telling you, I saw this at Texas A&M. I've seen this other places, where here's a brother who is saying, "Listen, basketball ain't my only thing in the world." And Jaylen Brown is truly doing some revolutionary things off the court, and I'm sure that just drives those execs crazy when he actually is the smartest person in the room.
Oh, no question. No question. Shout out to Tom Brady, presidential candidate, some point coming forward. Racist ass city of Boston. Your worldview is dying, Tom. You can leave your MAGA hats in your locker room and all that. You need to get out of Boston. I'm sure Bill Russell would agree. And yeah, Larry, I don't know, man. I know Rich Paul is his agent, and Tyrone Maxey is with Rich Paul as well. I'm trying to think. There was another guy who works with Rich Paul. Oh yeah, if LeBron James up in Philly, don't nobody be surprised. But at any rate, the point is this: these rogue Negroes who do whatever the hell they want drive white people crazy. And so as a result of that, I think we're at a moment where there's an inflection change in this country. It's not a nation, y'all. I know you want it to be a nation, but it's not. And what I'm saying is that Jaylen Brown has to be broken or controlled, but they can't break him. They can't control him. Larry, you remember this when Iverson was shooting, I'm adopted Philadelphia in 20 years. Remember when AI would show up at press conferences with throwback jerseys, and the white boys, the sports writers, would be pissed off because he would show up at a post-game conference with a Bill Russell jersey on, not realizing he's paying respect to a black man. He's from Philly. He shouldn't be wearing it. Y'all go to hell. If you want me to play here, you're going to have to take me. Finally, I'll say this. When black people decide to be themselves and you can't control them and you can't break them, the culture then moves. The politics then moves in their direction. Roland, I wish that Speaker McClinton had answered a little differently about some of these things. As far as I'm concerned, Eric DeVonzo played her. he had on a shirt and tie and a suit. Yes, it was stars and stripes and had a tie, but you know the rules, as you say, State House, you have to have a shirt, you have to have a tie. If I had asked her a question, I would have asked her about one of the most legendary black people to ever serve in the Pennsylvania State House, and that would be the great David P. Richardson. David Richardson, the same rules applied then. You know what Dave Richardson would wear from Philly? This man who was arrested and beat up by Frank Rizzo and them when he was in high school, and they forced, ultimately after 40 years, African-American studies into the Philadelphia School District, and I helped write that curriculum. It took us 40 years. But when Dave Richardson was elected to the Pennsylvania State House, he showed up in a dashiki with a Malcolm X medallion around, and he wouldn't take it off, and they let him walk the floor. Why? Because I'm going to show up like I want to be. Today, I heard somebody say if Roland Martin or Greg Carr were elected and showed up in a dashiki, we couldn't take the floor. At some point, you have to understand something. People are going to do what they want to do, and if you can't see that you have to include them in a certain rhythm, they will build a different society and leave you behind. I think Jalen is showing us what it looks like to stand in your truth and your space. The Boston Celtics took the equivalent of a knife and cut their throats today. And whether it be wearing African clothes, and I'm never wearing a tie again if I can help it, or marshaling your talents and taking them somewhere that's going to embrace you with both hands like Philadelphia, at some point we're going to have to make a stance. So anyway, in the spirit of David P. Richardson, I just wish the speaker wouldn't have allowed that white Nastas to play her with such a distraction, the kind of minor thing. But yeah, shout out to Jaden.
Do want to get this in, folks. An Orleans Parish grand jury has indicted Louisiana's Attorney General. That's right. The indictment claims that Liz Muriel intimidated New Orleans city officials, including Mayor Helena Marino, threatening to remove them from office under the state's usurper law. The threats were in response to the city council's approval of a new measure to hold an election for the city's new clerk of court position created by the legislature. The legislature created the position to block Calvin Duncan, a black man, from assuming his duly elected position as clerk of criminal court. Morrell says she had no confirmation of any investigation and had never received notice from anybody. The official charges of the indictment have not yet been released. Well, first of all, let's be real clear. They're sitting here, so she's claiming she didn't know. Well, hell, your dumb ass, the Attorney General, you should know grand jury indictments are secret. So how is it that you didn't know that? And remember, she sent the letter, and the mayor responded. Here's the deal: an arrest warrant has been issued. A $400,000 bond has actually been set, and that's $25,000. So she got hit with a 16-count felony indictment by this grand jury. Oh my goodness. I love this here. And this is the NOLA.com story. It says that while the special counsel Lori White was speaking to reporters, she believed that Morrell's attorneys had already arrived at the courthouse, could not say when Morrell would be processed. They ain't playing. They were like, okay, FAFO, Attorney General.
It's incredulous for her not to know as the Attorney General. She is the chief cop, Roland. How is it that you don't know? Well, she doesn't know because they continue to put unqualified, unfit individuals in these constitutional offices. And it's costing...
Well, no. She didn't know. No. She didn't know the grand jury is considering this. But of course you don't know the grand jury is considering this because it's a grand jury. It's secret for a reason.
It's right. It's sealed. She should know that. She should know that it's sealed. Right? And all I'm saying is for her to go down this path and the amount of tax dollars is costing is just incredulous to me.
Well, the thing here, Larry,
how much is the lawsuit,
again,
Did it say how much the lawsuit?
Again. Well, no. It's not a lawsuit. What she did was she threatened to remove them from office. She sent a letter. The mayor responded, and they were like, yo, what you did was illegal by threatening this, and that's why they sought this grand jury indictment. So now now it's going to be discovery, Larry. Now they're going to have to sit here and defend herself and they're going to have to turn over documents showing what actually happened here. I think this is lovely.
So, I mean, listen, if you believe, I mean, well, she was obviously elected, and if you said a chief law officer, so she should follow the law, Roland, turn herself in. And certainly, you know, as this process moves forward, we have to figure out, you know, like you said, to turn over documents and, you know, find out, you know, if, you know, she should go to jail. And certainly this provides her as an opportunity to lead by example in this case, Roland. I mean, if they want to back the blue and follow rules and regulations and follow the law, this is an opportunity for her to show some of the youth of the state, you know, how important it is to abide by the law. And when you make mistakes and maybe potentially face fines and go to jail, that she's willing to do that to lead by example. So I look forward to that.
I think it's great. This is New Orleans, Greg, saying, all right, y'all keep messing with us, keep messing with our money. Gotcha. We got something for you. I love it.
Sure, I do too. But let's be clear, as you saw what that little bird-looking governor said. He said as soon as the grand jury comes back, as soon as she's convicted, I'm going to pardon her as fast as the law allows. The only way we're going to stop this is to organize exactly what our friend Gary Chambers has been saying. You're not going to stop Liz Monroe by indicting her and convicting her in court, as long as there is a white nationalist governor who has already put out there that as soon as you convict her, I'm pardoning her, following his Lord and Master, Donald Trump. This is all of a piece. They are at the end of their rule, whether it be in Louisiana, Mississippi, anywhere else, South Carolina, wherever they are, or the White House. And so they have dropped all pretenses. At some point, we have to recognize that the rule of law is not going to save us. We're going to have to fight these people. And the easiest way to fight them at this juncture is to get your registration together, show up at the polls, and break their political backs. Every white person in Louisiana doesn't vote for the White Nationalist Party. And you don't need every white nationalist person. What have you been saying, Roland? When we vote our numbers, we win. If you want Liz Monroe to go to not go to jail, I mean, you want her to go to jail, you better change who the governor is, because this white boy had already said as soon as the thing came down, oh, I'm partnering her as soon as she's convicted, if she's convicted. We have to understand how power works. The law's not going to save us. And I'm saying that as somebody who studied the law, who teaches the law. The law's not going to save us, not alone. Now, it is delicious, it's great, it's funny, but don't y'all get mad if they convict her and this man is still down there in Baton Rouge and signs a piece of paper and she comes out with her hands up in a victory, like, now who else am I going to mess with? This is a serious thing we're in right now.
Indeed. All right, folks, that is it for us. Let me thank Larry. Let me thank Derek. Let me thank Greg, all my Alpha brothers, for being here on today's show. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Hope y'all enjoy the holidays. And have a good one, folks. That is it for us. Coming up after this show, what does the 4th of July mean to the slave? That amazing speech by Frederick Douglass. We had an all-star group of people who read that, and so we're going to share that with you. Don't forget, so we're not going to have a show tomorrow. We're going to have other content that we're going to be airing on tomorrow. So I gave the folks the day off, but I'll be back live on Monday, back in our Black Star Network studios. Folks, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here on the screen. Also, that's for credit cards. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com for details on how to donate. If you want to do a check and money order, make it out to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Send to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag. Hats, T-shirts, hoodies, all that good stuff. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, and while you're there, check out our marketplace. More than 50 black-owned businesses on our marketplace. All fantastic products. Everything you see right here in our studio. All of these products available at shopblackstarnetwork.com. Folks, be sure to download the app Fanbase. Follow me at Roland S. Martin. You can check us out there. All right, y'all. That's it. Y'all enjoy the holiday weekend. I will see y'all Monday right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered, on the Black Star Network. Holla!